All right. Welcome to another episode of The Close Up, a part of Orlando Magic HQ. Welcome to the show, everyone. Today we have a really fun episode. We have my friend Brandon Kravitz on 96.9 The Game, co-host of Game On with Mike Bianchi. He's everywhere. You'll hear him live. He's got tons of really cool outlets that he's a part of, doing all sorts of sports coverage from NBA to NFL to sports gambling. It's a lot of fun. And he's just a good friend of mine. I enjoy talking basketball with him. We have a great conversation for you guys to listen to. We get deep about different storylines for the Magic this year to follow. Different things that we think will be key factors for this team's success, from different players to, offensive concerns and things like that. We just have a really good conversation. Then the very last 15 minutes, we spend all about sports gambling. Sports gambling is a big part of Brandon's life, and it's something I enjoy doing as well. So we talk a little bit about strategy and just different thought processes that we take going into a season to place bets on, whether it's a $5 fun bet or something a little bit more serious. We talk about that and we have a lot of fun there. So make sure to check Brandon out. You can find his information in the show description and follow his work. He's really good. Before we get into that conversation, though, this is a big week for the Orlando Magic. You know, we recorded this Monday, October 20th. You're hearing it on the 21st. The Magic have their first game against the Miami Heat on Wednesday, the 22nd. It's their home opener for the first week of the regular season. And it's just an exciting, this week is it. We've waited all summer and early fall to get to this point right now where, preseason stats were pretty meaningless. End results were pretty meaningless. Now we're at a point where everything matters, right? If you lose in this week, it goes against your regular season record, and that eventually could affect the season standings at the end of the year. So everything matters now. It's game on. And, we're going to see how ready this Magic team really is pretty quickly, because their schedule opens up fast. This week, Wednesday, like I said, home opener versus Miami Heat. Then on the 24th, they have Atlanta on Friday. Then it's a back-to-back at home again versus Chicago. Now you're thinking, oh, that's Miami, that's Atlanta, that's Chicago. That's still a back-to-back in the first 3 games of a team that's trying to figure out their systems, their offensive flow, how guys connect and read with each other. We know they have all of training camp and preseason to start figuring that stuff out. Most teams still have to dial that stuff in early in the regular season. How they look at game 1 is going to be different how they look at game 20 and how they look at game 40, because teams are still learning and gelling and finding ways to connect with each other and implement their offense. This Magic team too is going to have additions coming back. We know Jalen Suggs is going to be back. If he's not ready for game 1, he'll be back pretty quickly after that, but he's had limited time going full scrimmage with these guys in preseason and training camp. So getting him back integrated into the system. We know later on in the season, hopefully before the end of the year, we'll have Mo Wagner back. He's going to have to get reintegrated into this team. Hopefully these are smooth transitions, but they could be speed bumps where it takes a little while for them to find their flow within the team and the team to find their flow within them. So, I am looking for a really strong home opener against Miami. The Magic have the new rebrand with the new logos, the new Jumbotron in the middle of the arena. There's going to be a new PA announcer opening up that game. There's new additions to the roster like Desmond Bane and Tyus Jones that this team is just really excited about. The league has really high expectations for the Orlando Magic right now. Everyone's projecting them to be a top 4 team in the East. Their bet line, their win total is 51.5. That's a pretty high win total for a team. When you start getting into the 50s, you're supposed to be one of the best teams in the league. So there's a lot of expectations, and they're going to have to start this season strong. I want this team going 3-0 this first week. Particularly at home, we need the Orlando Magic fans to get behind them. We need you guys to show up, get excited, be loud, give the arena a reason not to play music 24/7 during gameplay. That's my biggest gripe is I hate the music during gameplay on a regular basis. I don't mind the organic chants, defense, all that stuff. But when they're having to play, like random hip hop song while they're in the offensive set, that is just so annoying to me. I'd rather hear the crowd going crazy. So be loud, get excited, get after it. That's what I hope to see from the fans this week. that are living in Orlando local. I wish I could be there with you. I used to be there all the time. Obviously, I live in the West Coast now, for those of you that may not know. So I only get to see the Magic a handful of times a year in person. And yeah, so I'm excited though. It's going to be a great season. I'm very, very much excited to cover it for you all. Before we get into the interview with Brandon Kravitz of 96.9 The Game, the radio play, pregame, halftime, and postgame show for the Orlando Magic, I just want to remind you all of a few things right now that we have going on at Orlando Magic HQ. We launched a rebrand. You'll see our updated logos on your podcast feed. If you go to our website, orlandomagichq.com, we have a new logo package and a new brand resemblance going all over our social medias right now that we think just really matches the output of content, the professionalism of content that we're putting out there for you. And we want this to be your home for all of Orlando Magic news and updates throughout the regular season. So we put a lot of time and effort into this rebrand. We worked with a really talented art director named Thomas, who is a diehard Orlando Magic fan and does brand marketing and rebranding for a living. And so it was just a really cool way to work with someone so connected to the team, but also so good at their skill set to help us reshape our image as a brand. And we think you'll really like it. I have the article linked down below if you want to read about our rebrand specifically. So thank you for taking a few minutes to read about that. It's going to be really fun. We hope you guys enjoy our visual refresh. And stay tuned for further updates about our rebrand coming up in the future. Next thing I want to remind you all about is our Patreon. We still have a giveaway going on. All new signups that sign up between now and the end of the month, if you use promo code HQ50, you're going to get 50% off whatever subscription level that you sign up for on our Patreon. You get exclusive content. We've already released podcasts. We already released articles just for you guys regarding this season. We have a giveaway just for our Patreons going on right now where you can get a 47 Magic collab hat. They are sick. The link is in the description as well if you'd like to check that out. But consider joining us at Patreon. It helps us continue to do what we do. And we have a really thriving community on our Discord that we'd love to have you be a part of. And last but not least, could you just like and subscribe to this podcast if you're watching it on YouTube, or if you're listening to it on a podcast platform, just give us a review. That really helps us in the search algorithm, and we want our shows to be accessible to as many people as possible. All right, that wraps it up for my intro. Let's get into this conversation with Brandon Kravitz. All right, everyone, like I said, we got Brandon Kravitz on the show. Brandon, welcome to the show. I appreciate you joining us. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Our season starts on Wednesday. The NBA season starts tomorrow. It's a great time in the sports calendar in general, between baseball, football, and now basketball coming back. But man, I'm as we talked about before we hit record here, the schedule has never been tighter. I'm privileged to say that. And it only ramps up from here with the Magic starting. So all is good in my world.
I was mentioning this on my intro, that you have a new show with Mike Bianchi, and you're doing some new betting segments this year. Why don't you just fill me in on what you actually got going on? Because there are some newness to what you're doing. It's no longer in the zone.
It's not. I decided to put that show on the shelf. Bianchi and I were both looking for a change. We had started open mic together 15 years ago. I was his intern when he started that show on 96.9 The Game in Orlando. And I was just answering phones back then. And as things change and develop, and I matured as a professional, I got my own show in the afternoons, In the Zone. You've been kind enough to promote that over the years on this podcast. We both just were ready for a change. He was tired of waking up so early. When you have a morning show, you have to be up at 3 a.m. in order to get ready for that. It's a grind. I'm amazed, honestly, that he did it as long as he did. And my co-host, Tyler Karen, who was the producer for the last couple of years for Orlando Magic radio broadcasts, he got a really good job within the Solar Bears organization, and he had to leave the show. Very happy for him. We still have a great relationship, but I was kind of left. He was my guy. That was my rock. And when he left, I just didn't really want to replace him with another new producer. I had to do something different. Bianchi was ready for something new, and that's how Game On with Bianchi and Kravitz came to be. And we've been doing that since late August. We've been having a blast with it. I'm also a freelance with RotoWire. I do 3 video picks for them per week. If you check out their channels, I do NFL, Major League Baseball, and NBA primarily between those 3, depending on what's hot. I will have some Tuesday picks that drop for the Thunder Rockets game. Very excited about that one. And then I also partner with actionnetwork.com to do the daily NBA podcast Buckets. I'm on a couple of times a week there. And then the most recent that has fallen into my lap is I'm the host of the Favorites podcast, which covers the NFL from a sides and totals betting perspective. And we do that 3 times per week. So as I mentioned, the plate is full. These are all great things. I've been sort of angling for all of this for years. So I feel very fortunate to be where I'm at.
Well, and you skipped over what I believe you're continuing doing the pregame show for the Orlando Magic.
Well,
got so much going on. You forgot you actually still work for Orlando Magic.
I gotta have a list here in front of me. Yeah. Of course. I mean, that's the part of my job that I think breathes the most life into everything that I do. Just being there and being part of those broadcasts, especially at home. Those home games are, I mean, it's like taking 100 milligram shot of espresso every night that I work one of those. It's just an incredible experience. I get to live it kind of from the front row seat for all of us Magic fans. I'm a fan just like the rest of you. And I live and die with the wins and losses through all 82 regular season games. And now, the last couple of years, we've been experiencing some playoffs too. It's been phenomenal. But yeah, throughout the course of the season, all 82 and beyond, pregame, halftime, and postgame for Orlando Magic Radio.
I love that, man. It's been a fun journey. Like I said, I've been listening to you and known of you since I lived in Florida 15 years ago. And it's cool to just see you continue to grow and evolve over the years. And our partnership between Orlando Magic HQ and Brandon Kravitz continue to be a thing. So I love that. Let's get into it, Brandon. This year, we are recording this Monday, October 20th, wrapping up preseason. NBA starts on the 21st, Tuesday, when a lot of you are listening to this, and the Magic just the day after on Wednesday, the 22nd. The Magic have a busy week for their opening week. It's all home games. Miami on the 22nd, Atlanta on the 24th, back-to-back with Chicago on the 25th. That's the first 3 home games. But before we jump to that regular season start, let's just kind of think for a second about preseason. What were some of your biggest takeaways from the Magic preseason? We know the Magic won all 4 of their regular season preseason games. I don't really take much into wins or losses, but I do take what I've seen on the floor. I'm interested to hear what are some of your bigger takeaways from what you've seen through preseason and heard the rumblings through training camp and stuff like that.
I'm with you. I think the record is nice. I always say this, you'd rather be undefeated than winless in the preseason if
Absolutely.
You had to pick between the two, but neither really hold that much weight, especially when you consider that a lot of the teams the Magic were going up against, I don't think put their foot on the pedal in the preseason the way that the Magic did. I mean, the Heat, first of all, just aren't going to be very good even with their full allotment, and they don't have that right now. The 76ers played Tyrese Maxey, and that's about it when the Magic played them. And the Pelicans did start their guys, but they didn't finish with them, and the Magic did. So
Right.
You have to layer in that sort of context. That's why 4-0, great, doesn't mean anything. But
No.
I think the biggest takeaway is that Jamal Mosley clearly has made it a mission. When he got hired, he said he wanted to do 2 things with this basketball team: pace and space. And just personnel-wise, I don't think that's a change in philosophy in the head coach. He hasn't been able to do either of those things. The Magic have been a slow-paced team. The Magic have been the worst spacing team in the NBA. And you saw throughout the preseason that changed. His teams are getting out. The second they grab a rebound, they're kicking the ball up the floor, even off of makes from the opposition, pushing the ball up the floor and making sure to get into transition as quick as possible. And we saw the totals for this team skyrocket. The Magic had the second best offense in the preseason. This means a little bit more than the record, but it's still everything in the preseason, grain of salt. Disclaimer on that. The Rockets had the best offense. The Magic had the second best. I think that's one of the takeaways is more play style than it is the overall efficiency. I was definitely disappointed with what we saw from Desmond Bane, not so much in the way that he looks on the floor, but the shot has to fall. We can't say the same thing about Bane that we said about KCP.
Sure.
It felt like if you took KCP's entire game into the equation, his defense, the way that he wasn't a net negative on offense, but the 3-ball never came around. That's not what you paid for. And it's going to be the same thing with Desmond Bane. If he's a positive as far as facilitation and he's still good defensively and he fits the vibe of the team on the floor, that's great. If he's shooting 25% from 3, you lost the trade. So it's the preseason, but he's got to come around. And I love what I saw from Jace Richardson. I thought he was fantastic in the opportunities that he was given. I'd honestly be surprised if he doesn't get some real minutes at some point in the season.
I want to touch on the Desmond Bane thing there for a second, because I feel like a lot of people noticed, he didn't go out and have a game where he hit 4 or 5 threes in the game. And it seemed to me like he and Paulo and Franz are still very much figuring out when he is going to get those looks and how those looks are going to come about. There's been times we've seen him wide open off of a Paulo drive, and Paulo, instead of kicking it out, is going for the shot. And then there's times where, it just seems like they haven't quite fully found their chemistry there yet. And I'm sure they will, right? Jamal Mosley, in my opinion, is really great at building chemistry with this team, but they still have to find that rhythm in action on the court. And I think one thing too that we have to remember with preseason is these guys weren't playing their full loads either. And so therefore we didn't see the shot attempts for Desmond Bane be up there. Like, I think the most he took in a single game was like 5 or 6, when I think most of his career is taken closer to 7 and 8 with those higher minutes. So I feel like we will see that. When you're looking at a Desmond Bane versus a KCP, it's right. Their shot loads are completely different. KCP was a 4 shot attempt per guy game. When he's taking 2, there's obviously a lot more variance there, where Desmond Bane, okay, he doesn't have the same shot load that he's used to. That's like 4 or 5 compared to 7 or 8. I think what I'm trying to say is I think it's going to even out after a little bit of time. As they get the shot distribution and diet that they're used to, and just continue to build that chemistry. Know a little bit more when Paulo or Franz are going to kick to them, or when he needs to swing it out or drive. I think that kind of stuff is going to continue to evolve. But one thing I was really psyched on is there are times when he had the ball, guys closing out on him, and he's like, cool, I'm just going to dribble the ball and drive to the rim, or dribble and pass to somewhere else, where it's like, we haven't had guards that could do that in a very long time. Like, no disrespect to Gary Harris and KCP, that just wasn't really much of their game.
No, they were standing in the corner.
Yeah. Guards. KCP could dribble once or twice and take a midi pull up, but he wasn't someone that's going to drive to the basket, pull in a defender or two, and then kick it out to someone else, like we saw early with Bane. So I do have that same flag raised as you with him, right? I want to see that shot falling, and I want to see it pretty quickly. Ideally in game 1 versus Miami coming up here in just a couple days. But, we'll see. I do still think okay, it's preseason. I take away more of the positives than the negatives with preseason, because I know there's still so much getting sorted out, and the coach isn't even really playing his full deck of cards yet with how even he's going to strategize a game, in my opinion. So what are some storylines you are taking from this Magic team that you are watching going into the regular season?
The number one thing is expectations. This is really the first time that this Magic team has entered the season with the expectation that they could be a Final Four team at the end of the year. Every other year in the growth of this team, even last year when the team had made it to the playoffs, pushed the Cavs to 7 the year prior, and there was an off-season edition of KCP, and I would challenge Magic fans to remember how you felt about that when it first came about, not how it ended. There was expectation last year, but the expectation was build on the year prior. Hopefully you advance in the playoffs. That would not be good enough this year. And that starts in the regular season. The Magic are not at the point yet where they can say, hey, we have, let's just say LeBron and Luka, even though that hasn't worked out great yet. We have 2 stars. So we can just sort of coast our way through the regular season, make sure that we're not a play-in team, and then really put the pedal to the metal when you get to the playoffs. Like a team like the Nuggets can probably do that.
Sure.
The Magic do not have that. They can't afford that. Really need to get themselves into a position where they have home court advantage, where they set the tone in the regular season that they are going to be a force to be reckoned with, which means it starts with top 4 seed at the worst. But when you look at the landscape of the East, top 3 is very much in the range of possibilities. How does this team deal with that? Because they've always played the underdog role. And when you look at a scrappy defensive team that is full of, pardon the magic pun, heart and hustle, I think you can get by with that more so than when you're playing the favorites role. And we're going to talk about probably the betting aspect of it a little bit later on in the show. This is a completely different world for them, with expectations, with the being the bully in the fight. They haven't been that yet. So how do they manage that? I think that's going to be a fascinating storyline. And then where does Paolo go? Because he's got more steps in order to climb, in order to get to where we think he can ultimately be. This really should be his coming out year as far as an all NBA level player. Franz should be pushing for an all-star game. I don't think health is a storyline, just because that just sort of is what it is. There's nothing you can do about that.
They just need to be healthy.
But I mean, every Magic fan is going to be paranoid throughout the season about that.
We have our reasons.
Those 3, it's expectations, it's pushing forward with the stars on the team. I think those are the ones to follow. I don't really foresee deadline moves and things like that. Was such a big conversation piece last year.
Sure.
I'd be surprised if we were having in-depth conversations about that this year. This is the team that Weltman and company put together to compete. They have to be the ones that get it done. And then if it doesn't work, then in the future, you can talk about reshuffling the deck again.
Totally. No, I agree with that. And to your point, I think it's really important for them to set the tone early offensively for this team. Like, we know defensively they're going to come in from game 1 in this first week, probably be pretty tight and be one of the better defensive teams in the league. That's just been their identity for so many years. But I think for them to have the season that they want, they have to set the tone early offensively. Like, they can't be one of the worst teams in the league offensively the first 15 games. They have to be at least league average, in my opinion, and kind of start to find that identity with the faster pace of play that we've seen them play. Talking about the space, we need guys to be able to hit shots. We need Desmond Bane. We need Tyus Jones. We need Franz, and whether it's Jet or Jace or Tristan da Silva, one of these younger guys that's going to be in that second unit. We need them to find their pace and feel confident and hit those threes as well. It's going to be interesting, especially when you consider like that second unit is still kind of figuring things out without Mo Wagner, who's, out for the foreseeable future. I'm hopeful that he'll be back before the turn of the calendar year, but we'll see. We haven't really gotten a timeline up that on there. We just know he's a few steps behind Jalen Suggs, who is going to be back any game now, it sounds like. So yeah, no, I just wanted to add on to that as just like my storyline that I'm watching mostly is like, how does this offense look pretty early into the season, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll get better as the season goes on and as guys return to the lineup, but how does it look early, particularly if they are seeing, what if Jalen Suggs isn't ready for this first game and it's another week or so, which would be fine, not the end of the world regarding a 82 game season, but how do they deal with that? And then what does it look like with him getting back integrated because of the limited contact practice that he's gone through with the team and stuff like that. So I'm just looking forward to seeing those kinds of things pretty early and how that stuff shapes.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of that comes down to the mental side of it, because I think for guys like, I think about KCP was part of this, but he's not on the team anymore, so that's not really relevant. But Wendell Carter Jr., Jonathan Isaac, maybe the best examples of guys that you could just see it. They were mentally broken last year. They did not have confidence in their shot. Think of how many times Wendell Carter Jr., who has been a stretch big throughout his career, would just pump fake air at the top of the key. That's mental. Yeah, that's not physical. That's mental. Jonathan Isaac, who felt like every time he touched the ball, he felt like he had to be the guy that brought the offense back, when that's not even really what's asked of him. And he would shoot threes in the corner, even if somebody was in his face. Like those things start to compound. And any shooting coach will tell you the first hurdle. These guys have been playing basketball their whole lives. They made it to the NBA. The biggest problem that these guys have when their shot falls off is upstairs. And the Magic lacked a belief. You could even see it in their best player, Paolo, when he would drive the lane in traffic. Here comes the triple team. And he would look around and go, you have to make a split second decision. Am I going to try and shoot? Am I going to try and draw a foul? Am I going to kick out to one of my open teammates? He didn't trust them, and I don't blame him. But that sort of thing, it'll make him better if those guys are able to free up their minds. Everybody's in the right place. Everybody believes in what they're doing. And that starts with actually making shots and having an effective offense. So I agree with your point that it has to start right away. Otherwise, it's going to become a mental block for this team. They're going to look down at that jersey and go, I can't make threes in this. You know,
another
as
year.
Silly as that sounds, it is the way that it works.
It's interesting you brought up Wendell Carter and J.I. because those are two players. I mean, granted, we need this whole roster to be on their A game, but those are two players specifically last year that had down offensive seasons, and J.I. to an extent a down defensive season. I will say I think Wendell Carter Jr.'s defense was pretty underrated last year, but we need those guys to look good and feel good because they're both signed to long-term contracts for this team. They're both players that have had health issues throughout their years. Thankfully, Wendell Carter had like his most healthy season last year, and that was with dealing with his plantar fasciitis in his foot, missing, I forget how many games. I think it was about 12. And then looking rusty coming off of that injury as that type of foot injury is so annoying. It's just like an inflammation that never wants to go away. My wife had surgery because of hers over, a long time ago, but it's such a bugging injury. We need those guys to, they're we can all say Suggs is the anchor of this defense, but Suggs missed most of last year and the team was still a top 2 team all year defensively. And, Franz is a key defender in that aspect too, but he missed, 25 games as well. So we need Franz or Wendell Carter Jr. and J.I. to really find themselves this year, play with confidence, like you were saying, not just offensively, but defensively too, because this team, they need them, in my opinion. Because if not, you go into next offseason and you're like, man, we still got to figure this out with our bigs. And I don't want to be in that situation. Like,
I know. Yeah.
If they have to switch it up, I want it to be because they played well. And there's another guy they think this can match the style. I don't want them to have to trade someone on a negative, right? And we'll see. I would love for it to be a storyline year where these guys are playing so well. No, they're just our guys. We're going to see them again this next coming year, and we just see how it goes. As far as these young guys, man, I want to pause on a second before we get to the next segment and just talk about some of the younger players, because this team is still so young, right? Like Paulo and Franz are in their early 20s, but then we go to like that kind of next tier where it's like Anthony Black, Jet Howard, Jace Richardson. I'll even say Tristan Da Silva, who is on the older side, but it's his second year. I think he's like 24, 25 now, but it's his second year in the league. Which one of those guys is like kind of someone you're really keeping your eye on this year? I
think Anthony Black is one of the biggest X factors on the team. He can be the sixth man that really puts this team over the top.
Sure.
I think we saw that at points last year. Talk about a guy that when he removes the mental part of the game and he just plays freely, he's a different kind of a player. When he's attacking the basket, that's when you start to see things really click for him. He's not ever going to be the world's best shooter, but he's good enough, and defenses leave him open. So all he has to do is make some open jumpers and then put some stress on the defense around the rim. He's another one of those guys. When you talk about keeping up the standard of defense, his length and versatility on defense, he's quietly one of the best defensive players on one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. So it's, for me, with him, it's just more about consistency, confidence, and those things, but he's still so young.
Yeah.
This is year 3 for him he's going into. So he's definitely a guy that I think could be a huge factor on this team, not just like sprinkles of Anthony Black. I'm talking game in, game out. Here comes Anthony Black off the bench, and he's able to steady that second unit. I think that's huge. Jet Howard, who he was drafted in that same 2023 class with, is a guy that I would like. He looked great in the preseason.
He had a really good preseason.
Like he's been putting a lot of work in the gym, and that's one thing I have been hearing is that you cannot get him out of there, and you can tell in the way that he's played. But can that translate? Is that preseason comfortability? Can that translate to the regular season? He's not going to get a ton of opportunities, so he has to make the most of what he's given and then build off of it from there. So I'm not looking at him as somebody that's going to make this wild impact on the team, but just someone that could potentially emerge as another depth piece for a team that could use outside shooting.
Yeah, no, I agree with both of those. We would love to see Anthony Black just have that offensive floor rised a little bit. And when a player like Jet Howard or any of these guys, Jace Richardson, even if Noah Penda somehow gets in the rotation, we want to see them all kind of just be able to do what is asked of them to do at a decent level. They're not going to have a huge role of responsibility thrown at them, but come in, make an open shot, make the right defensive read, right? That's kind of what we just need them to do. I'll add Tristan da Silva. You know, he had an awesome offseason playing over with Team Germany. He looked great in the preseason, and I'm hoping he is just one of those guys that looks so good it's hard to take him off the floor, because his game, it seems like it's continuing to evolve. He seems like he's playing with more confidence. And just his ability to, like, when the ball is in his hands, do the right things with it. So we'll see if that translates, but that's someone who I think could be, you know, if he is on, you have another, what is he, like 6'9" wing forward that can, you know, defend pretty well and has the ability to dribble, pass, and shoot.
Everything that we talked about as far as a lack of confidence, he doesn't have it. He'll let it fly. He's so comfortable out there on the court, and he plays such a similar style to Franz, like not quite the Euro movement around the basket, but in everything else he does, just that slow, methodical pace, belief in himself, and an unselfishness. Like there is something to be said for that they play for the same national team. I'm sure that that's not an accident that they play a similar style. I think Da Silva has even said that he looked up to Franz when he was coming up and going to Colorado and all of that. But he's just such a valuable depth piece to have, because the second you miss somebody and he's got to slide in, he's such a seamless fit, and he was that as a rookie. He's only going to continue to get better, and I think solid is such a good word to describe him. He's never going to be the best player on the team, but he can always plug a hole when you need a hole plugged. Yeah, for sure. I agree with that 100%. Let's zoom out a little bit. Let's just look at the Eastern Conference as a bigger concept here as a second. What are some of the teams that you think are the biggest threat to the Magic to secure the home court advantage, right? We can probably just assume Cleveland and New York are already going to be one of the top 4 teams. And then I think there's some, you know, a lot of people are plugging in the Magic to be one of those, but there's some other good teams in this East. I know people have said this is, you know, wide open year in the East, but I also think there's a couple of teams that are getting underlooked when it comes to the ability of competition in the East. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, who are some teams that potentially could, you know, be a troublesome factor for the Orlando Magic as they try to get home court advantage for the first time since Dwight Howard? For sure. I think a lot of people, when they say wide open, they tend to overrate exactly what that means. It's just more open than it's been in the past, because you have a team that went to the Eastern, or not the Eastern Conference Finals. You have a team that went to the NBA Finals, very well could have won it, who is now without their best player in Tyrese Halliburton throughout the season. So that creates an opening. Indiana, by the way, when they get TJ McConnell back, still going to be a pretty good team. They're just they're not going back to the finals, but they're still going to be a tough out. The Boston Celtics, same thing. Last time I checked, anytime Jason Tatum misses time, they're still pretty good. Jaylen Brown is an all NBA level player. That team is not going to be bad. So that's another team that's going to be an issue. Anytime you have Giannis, you are a force to be reckoned with. And I know they lost Damian Lillard, but Dame wasn't the same guy. Yeah. So I don't think that's as big of a loss as people realize.
Giannis is still the best player in the East.
Hands down.
You know, it's like, if you have the best player in the entire conference, that's going to be trouble. And Miles Turner
added the best stretch big in the NBA in Miles Turner.
Yeah. I think that team, I think you're right. A lot of people are sleeping on that team. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I just feel like people are under thinking about the Milwaukee Bucks there. That's a team I have on my list for sure.
Absolutely. And if you told me right now, okay, I've looked into a crystal ball, but all I've seen is who has the 1 seed in the East and it's Milwaukee, I wouldn't be surprised. That wouldn't surprise me at all. They have the best, like you said, they have the best player, and it's not like they have a bad team around him. I don't think they're championship caliber. I certainly don't believe in Doc Rivers. Defensively, they leave a lot to be desired. Kyle Kuzma is kind of a weird fit, but adding Miles Turner is huge. And all they need is some effective guard play and a semblance of defense, and they are going to be tough. And Atlanta is another one. Atlanta was halfway decent last year. They dealt with the injury bug. Jalen Johnson is an awesome player. They're getting back. They missed him for most of the season. Dyson Daniels, absolute thief demon out there on the court. And they add Kristaps Porzingis, who's a threat, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And this is a team that loaded up. And Trae Young has a point to prove out there. I mean, this is a guy that's looking to cement himself with another big contract for the rest of his career. So there are still really good teams in the Eastern Conference. It's not like the Magic get to just waltz into the 3 seed. I just think if you're saying, okay, among these teams in the East, who do I know what I'm going to get out of? And you know Cleveland is going to be one of the best teams in the league. We saw what the New York Knicks were with this new contingent of talent, and I don't think Mike Brown is much of a drop-off, if at all, from Tom Thibodeau. So you should get the same sort of output. And then the Magic. Okay, the Magic last year won 41 games. They dealt with major injuries to their 3 guys. That was not a 41-win team that then just drops in an all-star caliber player in Desmond Bane. So it's easy to say, let's predict what I know is going to happen and what these teams are going to look like. Those are the 3 most predictable teams as far as the quality of play you are going to get game in and game out if their star players are healthy. When you get past that, it becomes more murky, but that doesn't mean that those teams aren't good too.
Totally.
And I think that and Detroit, how do we not, I mean, like the Pistons are on the rise too. And I think Cade Cunningham is going to push for an MVP consideration. So there's a load of competition in the East.
I'm going to name another team we haven't even brought up. The 76ers. We all forget about them just because they had such an injury-riddled season last year. And, there was some new chemistry. We're, trying to figure out things with adding Paul George. But Joel Embiid won MVP just a couple of seasons ago. Paul George was making All-Stars and All-NBAs just a couple seasons ago. Those guys are older, but their team also has VJ Edgecombe, who, as a rookie, looked really, really good so far in Summer League and preseason. They have Tyrese Maxey, all-star guard. They have Jamal McCain, who has dealt with unfortunate injuries, but if he can come back from his latest injury and look like he did before his injury as a rookie, like that dude was looking like he could have been in the running for Rookie of the Year last year with how he was playing for the 76ers. I think he was averaging like 20 points a game. It was just really awesome to watch him just come out and blossom last year. We want to see that again as just a fan of the NBA, but yes, it might be more likely they deal with injuries with the state of, who Paul George is and Joel Embiid. But for some reason, if those guys have a healthy season and chemistry is good, that's a team that could easily be a top 4 team in the East. So just wanted to throw that out there before we moved on from this kind of like who's the competition for the Magic in the East. Sounds like you and I are pretty aligned there with that thought process. Let's have some fun though. Let's switch this up because you and I, we'll text a little bit throughout the year. And obviously this is a big part of your career and what you love to dive into. Let's talk about a little bit of gambling because that is such a huge factor of, what the sports is today. We hear it advertised on every podcast, every commercial. There's some new gambling site that is being given to us. And then it's just simply fun to do, right? We'll start off with an easy question. Right now, the over-under for the Magic total win totals for the season on most books is around 51.5. Some of them have it at 50.5, but I think most have it at 51.5. Are you taking the over, the under, and why?
So I personally don't like to give the sports books. I don't like to let them hold my money for an even money return for that long. The NBA regular season lasts a little bit too long for that. I will bet the occasional NFL win total just because it's a shorter regular season. It's just a personal philosophy that I have is if it's not 3-1 or longer, I probably am just going to look. If I like a team, I'm just going to look to bet them on a more daily basis. I am a day-to-day NBA bettor, and so that's the way that I view it. I'm just putting that out there as a disclaimer. I like to have these conversations about over-unders too because it's a good way to contextualize the season, but I have not placed anything on the Magic win total. I would advise taking the over as long as the number is shorter than 52. If you look at last year as an example, the Knicks were the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. They were phenomenal last year, and their guys were healthy, and Tom Thibodeau didn't even play his bench. They won 51 games. You're asking for a 10-win plus improvement, which is really hard to do. I know the Magic dealt with injuries last year. That's still a really, really tough thing to do, especially when you go from the hunted to the hunter.
Yeah.
Teams are going to be after the Magic. So 52 for me would be my cutoff. At 51.5, at 50, then I'm absolutely fine with it. But that's the razor thin margin that you're going to be playing with, because the Magic are probably going to be sitting right there in that zone. The value is zapped. Like, the most value you have betting NBA win totals is a team that is way overvalued betting their under, or a team that is way, like the Lakers, or a team that is way undervalued in betting their over. Like, if you were a believer in the Miami Heat, who everybody has sold their stock on, if you think that they're going to be better, or the Charlotte Hornets, a team like that might actually be halfway decent. So the value is zapped for the Magic. 52 would be my cutoff.
Yeah, that makes sense. I actually took a bet. I don't do a ton of long season bets as well, but I put $30 into to my app over here and did a couple of long season bets, including a couple on the Magic. I also do plenty of betting not on the Magic, because I think I don't actually want to put all my stocks into the team that I'm most emotional about. It just puts too much stress on the season. But I actually took their total wins and I teased it by a game to bring it down to 50.5, because it really didn't change the payout odds too much. And it just made me a little bit more comfortable with it. And again, like I said, I put $10 on that, right? Like, so it's not like, 10 to win 12 or something like that. It wasn't a lot, but
so to that point, before you go on, there's a professional bettor out there. I've heard him state his advice on this, just to make you feel better about the $10 wager. This is a professional sports bettor. Okay. This person does this for a living. He says, if you follow a sport, you should, and this is his advice, not mine, I don't necessarily agree, but he says you should bet every single team in that league, bet their win total over or under, whatever direction you think it's going to go. Put $10 on each, and it will help you keep track of all of those teams throughout the season better than if you didn't do it.
Oh, so interesting. That makes sense.
And I mean, chances are, even if you were to do that, $10 on each team, you're probably, like, at the worst, what are you going to go, like 40%? Like, you're not going to lose that much. So if you like the idea, follow Steven and then multiply that by 30 or 29.
It's not a bad idea. All right. Now that we've gotten the over-under out of the way, what is your, when you're talking to someone like me who is a very casual sports gambler, but does gamble every single year, most of the time without a strategy. And I want to build a strategy for a season for daily and weekly type of sports betting. What is the type of mindset that I should be going into? What are certain types of betting lines I should be looking into that are like, hey, that's something I should start to think about putting some money on, instead of just like, oh man, I love this team, I'm going to put the over on Paulo to hit 20 over 25 or whatever. Like, what's just a mindset philosophy when you're looking at the days and the weeks worth of gambling lines that one should take before they start putting any value of money, whether it's $5 or $500? What is the mindset someone should take?
I think the first thing you have to do is get out of the mindset of every bet, even if it's small, even if you say, oh, I only bet $5 to $10. Get out of the mindset that every bet of yours has to be a parlay. Remove that from the equation. And I'm not saying never bet parlays, but there are people that bet if they place 10 bets, 7 or 8 of them are parlays, you're never going to win long term. There is a reason why sports books, primarily the main portion of their revenue comes from parlays. Don't be part of that. So that's step one. Now, correlated parlays, if you say, I don't care what Brandon says, I want to do it anyway, try and find correlated parlays. So one thing that I will look at for teams around the league is to say, let's just start with the Lakers and the Warriors on Tuesday night. If you think the Lakers are going to win, but only if Luka gets 20 or more, parlay the money line with the Lakers with Luka to score over 19.5 points. If you think, for the Magic, and there are numbers that back this up. Franz 20, Paolo 20, Magic win. When Franz and Paolo get to 20, the Magic often win those games. Now, you're going to be really pissed off when one of those guys gets 19 and the Magic win and the other gets 28. But those are the sort of things that if you are going to play the parlay game, try and think of it like that. if this hits, then this is likely to hit. That's probably the way that you should do it. I would say if you watch the NBA day to day, you already have a leg up on most people that are going to be betting into this sport that just come in casually for the big games. Trust your instincts. I think far too many sports bettors psych themselves out and will rely on the advice of others when they actually know the sport pretty well, to the point where they can get a grasp on what the right side would be. Know player values. That would be another one. Understand how much a player is actually worth. A star player in this league is worth between 5 to 7 points. And we're talking about the upper echelon, the SGAs, the Jokic's. Guys like Jamal Murray, probably worth like 2 to 3 at the most. Jalen Williams, questionable for the Thunder. That guy's worth like 3 points. Understand that. Home court advantages, travel spots, back-to-backs. Like, once you start factoring all of these things in, it's just going to make you a savvier NBA bettor.
Do you, do you get into like individual player lines? Will you place bets on, I'm just going to use the Magic as an example, even if you don't bet on the Magic. Do you look at someone like Baines over under on threes made, Wendell Carter's over under on rebounds made, or do you kind of stick more to a higher level of less deep in the weeds of player prop and more of team over under spread on points, and like attaching it to like that Luka example, Luka with the over on 20? Like, what's your thought process with more of the deeper, like, wrong player prop types of bets?
I think there's absolutely money to be made in that. For me personally, I tend to stick primarily to sides, but with the NBA, as far as props go, is probably my most heavily bet prop sport would be the NBA. And part of it is just that I'm in the weeds with the league. So I feel like I understand the day-to-day of the NBA a little bit more than some of the other sports. One thing I always advise people that are either already into sports betting or they want to get into it, the menu has never been bigger than what it is right now. And the problem with getting into props is that the menu becomes so expansive that you kind of feel like you have to be on everything. And then even there are nights for people where you'll win, but because you thought, like, I thought about adding Trae Young to the card and I didn't, and then he dropped 40 and I'm watching it on SportsCenter the next day, and you end up with this bet regret because you didn't add that. Like, you should always, first of all, if you make a profit, even if it's $1, you should always feel good about it because it's hard to win. But I think that that's the issue with getting too deep into the prop world, is that the menu is so large. It's like eating at the Cheesecake Factory. And I think you have to sort of whittle things down so that, you know, I'm good at X, Y, and Z. I only do these things. I do not have FOMO, and I will just stay consistent throughout the year, have fun with it, and hopefully win some money along the way. But absolutely, I think if you sense, whether it's a matchup like Wendell Carter Jr. going up against the center that you know he can dominate on the boards, if you feel like you're following a trend of, hey, he's had 10 plus in the last 3 games and I don't see him slowing down, you want to bet into it again if you feel like the books haven't adjusted the number properly. And then the other side of it, if you see, you know, if Paolo has 4 straight games of 30 plus points and then goes up against the Cleveland Cavaliers, chances are you want to take the under because it's not going to continue. So, you know, those are the kind of things. Every spot is different as far as, do I want to follow a trend? Do I want to predict the end of one? Those are the difficult things, but you kind of have to create your own philosophy that works for you as far as that goes.
That makes sense. I had a bet last year where it was early into the season. I was constantly hitting the over on Tim Hardaway Jr. threes for Detroit because it was like the line was 1.2 and he was getting up like 6 a game and making them at 40%. He had such a great shooting year. They eventually, like after like 20 games, they eventually like bumped it up to 3 or 4, which was a lot harder to hit on. And of course I was like still hitting the over because I'm a bad gambler. But to your point of finding the trends,
when the line starts to adjust, if you feel like you found something and you go after it, that's the beauty of betting props in the NBA, is there's so much for the books to keep track of.
Yeah.
If you feel like you've found something, continue to hit it, but eventually they'll catch up because this is what they do. And that's when doesn't mean you need to bet the other direction. You could just lay off of it.
Totally.
And just say, hey, I don't want to get caught with my hand in the cookie jar, and let's move off of this and go find something else.
I know we have to wrap up here in just a moment, but I got to ask, what is like one or two lines specifically for the Magic that you are going to be looking out for this year that might trigger you to place a bet on the Magic?
So I think this team is going to be really good off of a loss. They have been over the last couple of years, and now they've got a better allotment of talent than they've had in the last few seasons. So I would look to buy low on the Magic after they lose a game. This is also a young team that's very well conditioned. I would not be worried. You're going to get a little bit of a discount on them on the second night of a back-to-back, especially if that second night is at the Kia Center. I would look to back the Magic in those scenarios. And Jalen Suggs, when he's at home, he is the mayor of the kingdom. And they usually set his 3-point shot line at 1.5. I would hit the over on that.
I love that. Brandon, last question. The Magic have 3 games all at home this week. What's their final record going to be at the end of the week?
Am I too much of a homer if I say 3-0?
No, baby, because that's what I'm hitting too. Let's go. All right, Brandon, let everyone know where they can find you. And I appreciate you so much for coming on the show. This has been so much fun. Hopefully we can do it again later this year.
For sure. No, I always have a blast chatting with you. At Brandon Kravitz is how you can follow me across Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and beyond. And if you want to catch my live show daily, I would greatly appreciate it. It's Game On with Bianchi and myself, Brandon Kravitz, 3 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday on FM 96.9 The Game, streaming live on the iHeartRadio app. We talk a lot of Magic basketball, so make sure to hop in and see what we're all about.
And listeners, I'll have all that information in the show description, so please feel free to just click the links that I'll have posted. Brandon, thank you so much for joining me today. This was a lot of fun. I look forward to continuing to cover the league alongside of you this year and all of our other colleagues. Last but not least, let's go Magic.